Dave is going to join us because I found him in the hallway. So I think at this point we are going to call the meeting to order for the Camden. Thanks, Steve. I was like, I actually feel like I should turn sideways at least. Okay. So we should call the meeting to order for the Conservation Commission for October 2nd, not 4th, 2024. Given our lack of select board liaison presence and public works presence at the moment, I think we're going to really just kind of slide down and talk about the Conservation Committee Commission member terms, because that needs to be updated both in terms of, for the select board to know who's actually there and what their term is, what might be vacant and when, and then we can talk about any suggested people that might fill the seats. I think it also coincides with website updates. So if we get this updated, then we put it on accurately once. So I apologize for sort of jumping all over the place, but we're going to kind of work with what we've got. So this makes the most sense at the moment. So what I had with, I think Samantha, because you were working on, or Sam, you were working on the website stuff. So you pulled up what's on the website or similar. So it says Samantha Mortlock 2026. Does that sound correct to you? She's like, I'm serving.
I think so. I mean, I'm here until somebody tells me to stop doing it.
Okay. Indefinitely. Okay.
I think that my term was renewed in the past year or so. So that
I agree. I think so.
Like it could be right.
Okay, I agree. I think it was renewed actually earlier this year, a fiscal year, for a 2-year term is what my understanding is. So they operate off a fiscal year. So the terms end on the 30th of June each year. That was what I needed to clarify, because I was like, do I expire in January or June or something random? So okay. So you are good. You're not leaving us imminently or anything that we're not aware of. Okay. The next one on the list says vacancy for 2026. So that's a 2-year term that is currently vacant unless we figure out otherwise.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Because I'm not listed on.
Yes. You aren't listed and Steve isn't listed on this. And is this what is on the website?
This is what's on the website.
Okay. So it hasn't been updated in a while, because that's why I was wondering if Steve was the vacancy. Awesome.
It says I'm
Yeah.
until June 30th of 27.
Oh, awesome. So, okay.
So Steve was that June 30th of, 2027? Is that what I heard?
That's it.
Awesome. Okay. How did you get that information? I never received that.
Yeah, I never
For
got
myself.
any either.
Well, I just got a little packet. It says there's a Town of Camden Committee Handbook with a letter.
I
Just
got one
welcoming
eons
to it.
ago. All right. I'm going to make another note. This is all good information.
So Steve, you got a packet?
Yep.
Where the heck is my packet?
I didn't get a packet.
I didn't get a packet.
You're special.
Welcome,
Maybe it's a
Steve.
new thing.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good. That must mean you're important.
I doubt it.
All right. I'm going to suggest that the Camden Conservation Commission members all receive a packet and perhaps even a renewed letter with their current or soon to be, term, so that we all have the same thing in hand. That might be advantageous. I'm sure it's right in a nice file that Janice can do relatively painlessly rather. So let's see. So we have, okay. So we don't have that as a 2-year term. We don't have a vacancy because that's exactly what Janice said when I asked her. She's like, I don't think you have any vacancies. I was like, I don't know. That's what the website says. So we're going to figure it out. We have Patricia Pendleton, whose term expires in June of 2025. She has not attended a single committee meeting, which is you know, I think there's been some communication. I've reached out, Janice has reached out. I think, I know that Allison has reached out. So it just, I think the timing is just not jiving with her, or it was well intended at the time and just hasn't been able to be executed. So, so then from my perspective, it's a question of just sort of timing out the position and sort of maybe thinking about who might be an appropriate fit for the middle of next year, or trying to onboard somebody between now and then, to see if they're interested. And then when the term expires, that might be a good time to fill the
What if
seat.
She hasn't attended any meetings. Why is she occupying a position when we could maybe find somebody else who could participate immediately?
And that's for me to just kind of go to the select board, to, you know, to Janice and to Allison to say,
Right, yeah. I mean,
you know,
that to me
here's
seems like-
sort of two options. We find somebody who's interested and then, you know, transition, or I believe the select board has to sort of, we either have to, you know, ask her to formally resign the position, or we sort of acknowledge that she hasn't,
Participate.
or participate, right?
It's the two choices, right?
Yeah, so, and then I have, my term is expiring in 2025, so June 2025. Then Brian, you are also a 2025.
Right.
Barb is 2024, but she must have renewed, so we would need proof of renewal
For who?
and new term for Barb Oland.
But for yeah, but like, why do we need a proof of renewal?
Well,
How does
because right now she wouldn't actually be a member right now.
Okay.
What does that mean? Is it, because I feel like there was just a meeting in the past year where somebody said, are you going to stay on? And I said, yes. And that's all that happened. So is it just something like that we need to do with Barb? 'Cause she's
Right,
on
but
the
we
same schedule
also,
I-
we need to know who's member, you know, who is an official member and what their term expiration is. Like, that's just sort of good practice. We have to kind of keep the books,
Yes.
so to speak.
Yes.
So it's not that we don't want you, or that we're not interested, or that when she started or when she ended is just
Right.
more, you know, I'm
I guess I'm
confident.
just asking, how do we obtain proof of renewal? Because mine seems to have been like just talking about it at a meeting. Is there some form, or can we just talk about it in the next meeting?
So Janice actually has to re-up that term in the
Got
letter.
it.
Have to be voted out again by the select board.
That's a good question. Again, these are things.
Um,
Does a current member, maybe if we had that packet, we'd know what's happening. Educate us, Steve.
The packet of mystery.
The current members.
Committee vacancies, 7.
Yes, to renew, require select board or other approval. Okay, so my question would be, or so far to Janice, could we all have those committee member packets that come from the town so that we all have the same information? And then see if my phrasing is correct. Does a current member's willingness to renew their position require select board or other approval? Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
I think we also want to know how to proceed with Patricia's
Yes,
membership.
with an inactive member. Okay. Also, yes, good. Okay. So obviously people can email, you know, in a full circle, you know, on a reply all scenario, but does anybody have, so it feels like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
no.
Are we missing somebody on here?
Sam,
'Cause
Sam,
yeah, 'cause
your
you're
name's
on
not
here.
on here, right?
Yeah, because so you are not on
Sam,
here.
you need to be officially listed on the website, right?
That's, Yes.
And do
That
you know
was-
what your term was?
No, that was part of my
Did you get
question.
voted
email.
on by the select board?
Think so?
Well,
I think
yeah,
so.
that happened to me, where I wasn't on there and they had to vote me in. So it's
Okay.
just a simple matter of you then being listed for one of those vacant positions, right?
Okay, so 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5,
And
yes,
then-
7. So we
yeah.
have 7 on the.
Pamela's resigned, right?
Correct.
So that creates an open position, right?
No.
I don't think, I think
Think
that's
so.
where Steve actually stepped in. I think
So
you
that's
took the
correct, yeah.
vacancy. In terms of timing,
Okay.
it would have been Sam taking the vacancy and then Steve
Yeah.
getting
Okay. Yep.
the transitions, the new, kind of, I guess, the new vacancy. But when Pam resigned, Steve was officially able to
I
onboard
learned
as a
about it
committee.
at a Camden Can
But,
meeting. Allison said there were openings, so I applied.
Yep.
but if Patricia ends up resigning, then we may actually have a vacancy.
Correct.
I think that's, I know there's some weird musical chairs here, but for now, I think my impression is that it's a full committee. We happen to have an inactive member. If she resigns, then we do have a vacancy.
Okay.
So we
That's
have
great.
no vacancies then.
I believe there are no vacancies.
Okay.
I believe we have, I think, and I will
There's 7.
triple check.
Well, the Town of Camden Committee Board, as of October 18th, they gave me a paper and listed everybody, and Sam's on it. I got Samantha, Sam, Patricia Pendleton, you,
Yeah.
Barbara, Pamela Gleason, and Brian.
So there's
Not
there's
on
only
it
one,
yet.
there's only one.
That's of
Sam.
October 18th of last year.
Got it.
But there's not 2 Sams on there. There's one, right? Samantha, there were
2.
2.
Right.
Sam and Samantha.
Okay.
Well, here they only list one, but
There's only one. Okay, I think we have the anomaly. I think we're seeing the gap here. Isn't it
Okay.
nice that the non-member's been doing all the minutes?
Right.
Yikes. Oh dear. Okay, you're not the first one where this kind of got a little skewed.
Yeah, it's funny because there was a conversation where there was some conversation because I remember thinking, oh, okay, so it's like going through the channels. So it might just be a funky documentation thing. I feel like
Yep.
it was discussed, but
Sure. We'll have the opportunity to tuck in and say hi to Janice
Yeah.
on the way out the door, so to speak.
Okay.
Let's see if
Well, you're here,
I heard
Sam,
from
so that's
Allison
what's
by
important,
chance.
right?
I'm here.
Good.
No, okay. I didn't get anything from Allison, so. So we're going to continue to work sort of backwards, which is to say, what are your webpage updates, Sam? I'm trying to wait to see if Dave or Allison show up before as we're kind of.
I'm sort of like, so with the update and just like with the, I think it's going to be easier to do updates piecemeal. And so I've adjusted my approach a little bit. I wrote to Janice last night to just try to get this piece figured out. And then I have a couple updates that I'm just going to go like chunk by chunk. And so part of that will be like, we'll be like updating some of the content, but I'm just going to go in chunks to make it a little easier. And I think that will be probably the best approach, unless and until we say, okay, let's have our own website, which at this point, I don't know if that's necessary.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
That sound good?
That seems reasonable. Yeah, and it's really how Janice or whoever's working the website can get something done
Yeah.
versus nothing done. And it's not a criticism, it's just a reality of
Oh, yeah.
windows of time and space, and so
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So when we know how they work best or in what amounts work best, then let's just do that, because we don't want to make anyone else's job harder than it already is. So
Yeah.
Well, but sometimes.
Yeah.
People's jobs can be made harder. I mean, at some point, the website is pretty frustrating. So thank you for, I think, relentless sort of advocacy and pushing for the website to be better is a good thing. I don't know why it's not faster, but thank you for being that voice.
Yeah, totally. We're starting with sorry. We're starting with just making some updates and making sure the members are correctly reflected on the website and that our terms are right. And then we'll move on to a few other things. And I'll reach out when I need. I think there will be an opportunity for us to like populate like a toolkit and, maybe try to promote some of what we're doing or have done. And when that happens, I'll probably ask for your help with that. But yeah, that's where we are.
Some of the other committees have just started Facebook pages. I don't know if that's something you already talked about, but
Talked about it in the past. I think it's not a bad idea. Might be a nice.
there are all kinds of problems that can go along with that. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like usually the benefits kind of outweigh the risks aren't terrible.
Hard,
If somebody
yeah.
wanted to take it upon themselves,
Yeah.
So you'd be a great candidate for starting a Facebook page.
I would be a great candidate.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
I'd be on the other end of the spectrum.
right. Yeah, I
Totally useless.
wouldn't assign that.
No, we're not
This
useless.
should be your
but
highest priority.
that's not your strength, and that's okay.
Right, that's what it really
It's not
comes
going to
down
be my
to.
strength either. Let's be honest, Steve. I have had a page, a fairly inactive page for.
I'm an organized person,
Long
but
time.
not in that way.
Like the Pathways Committee has a Facebook page and it was really active maybe like 5 years ago and it's not doing any damage right now.
Yep.
So it's just not
Yeah.
active.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, the benefit of the web pages was we could point to resources and information like the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry stuff. There's a lot of good information on invasive plants, invasive insects. There's some information on the DPW website we could point to, you know what I mean?
Oh, I definitely
so
see the
you could,
benefits of the
like-
website, but all of those things can,
Yeah,
if the goal is to reach people,
yeah.
believe it or not, people aren't just like perusing the website cache. I mean, it happens a little bit, but you can,
When we,
a quick way to get stuff out to people. You can post things on Facebook. A lot of those organizations also have Facebook pages. And
Mhm.
I'm definitely not saying it's a replacement, just, if we want to have another communication tool and somebody wanted to take that on, I don't think there'd be any harm in it.
right.
Yeah. Someplace to post like, we did this tree planting, this shade tree planting, for example, and look at us doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be
I have a
great.
question about that actually, if we want to publicize that at all, or if we want to, I don't know if there's any follow-up that we want to
In
do
terms of
about.
the tree planting on Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like we partnered with Public Works to do this thing, and I don't think we took any pictures except of the trees themselves, which might be boring, but I don't know, just thinking out loud here, brainstorming.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good to send something out. Mid-Coast, the new
Villager?
newspaper, yes, is looking for, they've hired a lot of new people. And
Yep.
I don't think it hurts it's good to just reach out to them proactively all the time. I even noticed like the Bangor Daily News is running stories. They have a new reporter in the area and there's, there'll be random stories about one restaurant that's opening up in Camden. And not to say that restaurant isn't like the most newsworthy thing in Camden, but it's probably just a factor of somebody reached out and
Yep.
reaching out to Midcoast Villager, Bangor Daily News, a couple of them to say, hey, we have this tree program and we've been
Yeah.
doing this, and, kind of make it about the larger thing a little bit. And
I mean, it's a great way to say for more information, or if you would like a street tree in your right of way in 2025 or whatever, it's just a nice way to
I mean, we
populate
can send a text
the
message out
next
if you want.
list.
We
And-
could send something, if we had something like,
Yeah.
we're looking for, if you want a street tree, I said something at the select board meeting last night, but if we could send a message out to that mass
Yep.
list. We did that for the Pathways Committee when they wanted feedback on the master plan, and, it hits a new demographic of people. That actually
Okay.
might be a good,
I,
especially if we could link to, but it would be nice to also be able to, link to something.
Yeah, I agree.
But it could be as simple as, this is an email you can contact, or,
yeah, I think it's a great idea. I also think, just the landowners that, or residents that we did Sam and I went out and planted together. So I say we as in looking, and I think 2, if not 3 of them would actually
pose with their tree maybe.
post
and
with
be
their
like,
tree. I mean, truly, I think one is incredibly enthusiastic, and even if she didn't want to be in the photo, I think every single one of them expressed, genuine gratitude and
I heard there were some
excitement.
happy people.
Very happy people. Yeah, no, it was good. And one crank
That's
up, but it was-
great.
and it was, yeah. And I mean, and it was it was a fun way to spend, a Sunday morning. And, it really felt like we physically did something, because sometimes, we're writing letters, we're cheerleading, but, I mean, I'm kind of a girl on the ground kind of person. So it was nice to amplify that effort literally. But I do think that they would even give a little quote or, stand out by their tree, like you said, and
Are
just
the
be
trees
like,
totally
"Yay."
free? Because when I got
They
mine
are.
through the Camden Garden Club, it was $75.
Nope, free.
Yeah, so we've kind of revamped that program. The Garden Club, now we're saying people could go through them if they want a tree that doesn't really fit into the shade tree program, especially on
In
their
their-
property.
In the backyard, so to
Um,
speak, or.
Right, or,
whatever, yeah.
or just, we're focusing, the free trees are for, in the general village area, where we're walkable to the village in the town right of way.
Correct.
So they become town trees that the person can't cut down without permission.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but the town website, just that news and updates section, this is what we did for the Pathways Committee was
Oh,
they
yeah.
wrote up a little press release, it was something they were going to send to the newspaper. And then it's very easy to post something in the news and updates, like a news article on the town website. So we could send a text message out that links to that, and, it'd be pretty simple just to write something up that could go there.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's certainly an easy way, straightforward, directly connected to the town and the website, all of the things. So I think that would be a nice way to.
You've already written good things about the overall, that Arbor Day
Yeah.
article had a lot of the stuff in it. Just copy and paste and put it on the town website. And
Yeah. I'm sorry, I have to step out. I hope to return. If there's an action need, just, especially for me, just write it down, and I'll hopefully be back to
Okay.
grab that.
Very good.
I'm sorry I have to step out. It's just kind of nuts at work right now and couldn't be helped.
No
so.
problem.
Is what it is. Yep.
All right. see you in a bit.
Thank you.
So how many trees did you get planted on Sunday? How many
11.
left? Wow.
So it was a good number. So
When they first
Dave
talked
and
about it, I
Molly
thought we'd have
went-
to dig the holes, and I said, that's the hardest part.
no.
Well, they-
Holes are already
Even
there and
I didn't
everything's-
have to dig the holes. Whoop, whoop.
No.
The buggy, or some other
I
guy
know
did.
that holes
I don't
are
know,
out
Dave
but-
did it. So it would be great to have people dig the holes. Dave went out and pre-dug, mostly him, I think did a lot himself. So
That's the
that
hardest part.
that is a need, but we can still take non-hole diggers, but I know Barb is going to let me borrow her electric auger. She was telling me all about it to plant my hydrangeas. I haven't.
I've seen her use it. It's amazing.
Oh,
It
really?
makes holes like in no time, not tree size holes, but that kind of
Right,
hole.
like cork
Fence
sized
post
or whatever
holes.
fence, yeah.
She came over and like when I wasn't there and just like started a little bit and I was impressed with the size. She was like, I didn't finish because I didn't know if you wanted it there, but I just wanted to show you what it could do. And I was impressed with the size of the hole. It was
Yeah.
bigger than I would have expected, but
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I feel like that kind of covers the street tree planting experience. It was Dave and Molly and then Sam and I. And we had 11 trees in and, in the morning, just in the course of the morning, and picked up everything, watered everything, dropped off the extra stuff and debris at the public works so they could,
put it in the app. Did they all go in the app?
and they all went in the app.
Oh, good.
So,
When we
So
first
ding,
talked
ding,
about it,
ding.
they said that the trees are going to need to be watered.
Mm.
yeah, well, they were watered. Well, yeah. And the landowners that Sam and I planted at,
Okay.
we're definitely all over it. Those trees I'm not worried about. Others, perhaps, but
Right, well, I
yeah.
could do that if they,
So.
if the town's got the truck with a tank on it or not,
mm,
I could do it.
We should
Yeah,
have you
we
call
should
Dave and
definitely
just
pour
let
that.
him know that you'd be willing to
for
do some
sure.
of that. That's been
That has
Told
been
them
a
when we
challenge.
first started this conversation.
I just don't think he's put as many trees in to date, which is partly why we wanted this 1 or 2 days in
Mhm.
this fall to kind of move this project along for this year. The early storms of the beginning of the year and current line project, there's just a
They've
number
been
of
doing
things that
so
were,
much stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of January literally just kind of, pushed everything, into a different timeline. So, yeah. So
It does sound like we need more people though that are like ready to go with trees, right? The place was in the app with halos and
I'm ready.
like more locations, like pre-vetted locations. Because you guys had to kind of scramble a little bit.
a little bit. So I think Steve and Brian and I, we should talk, and Samantha too, you because I know that you can do those windows in between, we could get out and twos go out on the next different streets, help continue to populate and then reach out to those individual landowners to see if they're in fact interested. Because it's one thing to put the general outreach and say, do you want a tree? It's also another thing
Yeah.
to see those opportunities that maybe even the person doesn't see themselves, and to say, hey, are you interested? And they might not be, and that's fine. We don't need to make it a thing. But if we know that there's a spot, we're just that much farther ahead when we've got, 12 trees ready to go in the ground kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
I'd love it if somebody could ask my neighbor, because I'm a little afraid, because if they say no, I'm going to have a hard time like being just really passive about that if they don't want a tree. But I really want them to have a tree.
being honest
There
about it.
used to be a tree there. But like, I don't want to get mad at them if they
If they say no, thank you.
say no. They're really nice. But
I hear you.
That-
So,
that's where the press from the Villager or whatever would help a lot, I think. Is
yeah, just
stimulate some
general
interest.
outreach, and then we
Yeah,
can,
right. That would help a
they'll do the
lot.
walks and populate those places and spaces. And
We walked Union and Belmont,
yeah,
you, Pamela, and I,
Yep.
and we logged some stuff in. But it's kind of a catch as catch can. We didn't talk to any of the landowners. We just,
but that's an
identified some
opportunity over the winter even just to
Right,
call and say,
exactly.
hey, your spot has been identified as a place for a potential tree.
potential
Are
tree,
you
right?
interested? Yes, no. When you get the yes, then they go on the list.
No pressure.
Right.
Just, yeah, right.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Yeah, so that's sort of the update from a tree planting perspective. And the fact that there are still, and the great thing is we can do it even in the winter, because there's
I think we
Very
want
true.
some right now, right? Because they have more trees
still
to
have
plant.
more trees to go. So I'm out for the next month. I'm overbooked, so I'm not
But if
going
we
to be
could get
helpful.
something out that went out to
But if we've
a
got
text
a,
message. I was surprised the number
Exactly.
of people that commented on the Pathways Master Plan. I mean, that's That's not like offering something free. That's, hey, read this document and provide comments to the select board. That's a much, and there were a fair number of people that we don't know, I've never heard from before that
Huh.
responded to that.
That was
Um,
on the website, it's Facebook, or was that on the,
It was a
link on the
It was a
website?
link on the website, but what they did,
Huh.
are you signed up for town text messages?
Yes.
So we sent a text alert out, but you must not have gotten, this all sounds very, it's weird how you have to sign up for,
Like everything or nothing?
yeah,
or-
it's like, I get 3 versions of pretty much everything now.
I get
because
2.
You get 2?
But it's like,
Yes, it's so annoying, but I appreciate them, so it doesn't
I
really
then
matter.
wasn't, before I wasn't getting like any,
Ah.
so I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's another area that could be improved, but we did send it out, but I guess you didn't get it.
Yep.
Or you're not signed up. Do you get text messages from the town?
Occasionally. I gotta go check and see were there some criteria, like you gotta
There was a
identify.
Camden General, Camden.
Yeah, maybe that's the
roads.
problem. I didn't do a good job of setting the criteria. I don't know.
It's, the town could have done better too, in the way that
Well, I'll go look.
kind of goes along with the website commentary, but.
Okay, so we were kind of going backwards only because you and Dave were not here. So I'm gonna kind of just keep going backwards. And I feel like, so Sam sent a couple of things in, and I don't know if it was a reply all or direct to me to add to the list, which I neglected because it was so last minute. She mentioned fireworks because it had come up in the previous
Oh.
discussion.
Mhm.
And does the commission want to take sort of a stand, so to speak, or is this more of an education outreach awareness about the environmental impacts? And did whoever, I think Barb had taken a particular interest in it, and maybe Sam or Samantha, I can't remember, somebody else that I remember was interested. And so they were going to do some research and bring thoughts to the next meeting and then figure out how it made sense for us to share the knowledge or, raise the concern with,
About fireworks?
yeah, so I'm gonna be more, I'm gonna abstain on it, I think, but, yeah, so, but that was of topic since Sam
Well, it would
isn't
be
here.
helpful because it's come up at the select board quite a bit. And there's lots of commentary from people in town about various aspects of it. For years, the town didn't do them because there was a nesting pair of bald eagles on Curtis Island, and they're still around, but now they're not endangered. Everything from that to just the debris that falls into the harbor when they do it. It's if you haven't seen the barge that they do it from, I mean, it's a lot of stuff goes in the water before it even gets into the air. And they have to clean up stuff that washes up on the beach every year. Then the stuff that Tom Hedstrom was really more outspoken about this than I had been in recent years. He had done some research, and there's a lot of stuff in those that nobody really knows. And it would be, whether it's the greatest environmental threat to the town of Camden, no, I don't think it is, but it would be helpful to have some guidance from somebody looking into it. I mean, it definitely scares a lot of animals every year. Dogs run away. There are a lot of towns moving away from it. It's definitely not beneficial for the environment. And
I shot them from Mount Batty one year and started the fire in the woods.
oh yeah,
Lovely.
it does. The fire starting is a
In
major
the
thing,
Town, they look like nothing. They look like just tiny.
right? I remember that. That was
I've watched them in the harbor from Mount Batty.
not a
and
good
they're-
idea. Yeah. So they always do it over water, pretty much. Most of the fireworks that happen in town require some form of town support. So it's basically the town putting on a fireworks show, even if it's the businesses that raise money for it.
Yeah.
The amount of
becomes a good-
support it needs, we have to find, the harbor master is in charge of letting barges be placed in the harbor. So every year it's like this scramble to figure out where it can go. Moorings get displaced for, they tell people on their moorings, like, you might want to move your boat. You don't have to. It's just, there's all kinds of dyes and different things. And so it's, there's talk about an ordinance that would prohibit them. And there was a fair amount of support on the select board for that. Just the idea that, okay, is this really the way that we want to celebrate? Is this in accordance with sort of larger town values? Especially, we're doing it in the same place too. So year after year after year, multiple times. And, but I don't know if I haven't done a deep dive into that research, but every year we said, can we get the MSDS sheets to actually know what specifically is it that's being released? What are the chemicals? And nobody ever really has time to follow up and get concrete answers. Like, what is the red color? What harm does it or does it not cause?
So I just have a question about the approach that the town board takes towards any sort of regulation, a new regulation to prohibit fireworks, which I wouldn't personally be opposed to, but I could see a lot of community backlash to that. And I just wonder, a lot of people that I've talked to about the fireworks issue, and it's not a bee in my bonnet at all. I definitely wasn't the one who volunteered to dig deeper into this. It might have been Sam, but they're like, well, how are we going to celebrate? Are they going to make us do some other thing? Is it going to have to be some other thing? Or I've heard about drone shows. And one of the things that I wondered is, before coming up with an entire new policy and ban, could we coordinate with the town business community that puts these on and just try something different one year without it being a ban, and just, be supportive as the town government with urging them to try something different without it meaning we're switching to drones from here on, or we're switching to whatever other way of celebrating from here on. Just like, this year, we're going to try something different. And maybe if we did something like a drone show, people's minds would be completely blown and they never care if they see fireworks again, or maybe not, who knows. But rather than approaching it as we're going to ban this now, or we're going to shut this down, just like, why don't we just try something different once and see how it goes, and then keep the conversation going?
Yeah, that's been, this exact conversation has been had more times than I can count. It's expensive. That basically, my position on the select board was, there's no need to ban anything. We could just not put a huge amount of town effort into making it happen behind the scenes. It can't happen without the town kind of moving mountains. This year, it was announced it wasn't going to happen. Every year, it basically gets to the point where it's almost not going to happen because you can't find all the barges are like busy fixing people's seawalls and things like that all over the place. So getting a barge, reserving, a barge to launch a fireworks show from has become very difficult. And so every year, and that's sort of been my issue, is that the town isn't paying that $5,000 that, or between 5 and 10 that the show usually costs. But we end up, the police department has to do overtime to do all the traffic control during it. The harbor master moves mountains. They took all these sort of decrepit floats and they rafted them together this year, and they put them, out by Curtis Island. It's a huge amount of town effort just going into making something that wasn't going to be viable. Like, the chamber announced that they weren't going to do it, and then something happened that if you take all these town employees, and it's I mean, this year it was like, there was just going to be the music show from Camden Rotary, and everybody was at peace with that. And then at the last minute, we pulled it off. So just the nature.
Somebody must not have been at peace with it for that amount of last minute effort to go into it. I guess I'm
Steve
saying
Pixley,
whether
it's Steve Pixley.
whether it's a regulation or the town making a decision that it effectively prevents a fireworks show from going forward, I could see that being very upsetting to a lot of people, whether I support fireworks or not. And I'm just wondering if rather than being prohibitive or preventative, we could work with.
It's that they don't want to raise more money to do a drone show is significantly more expensive. But it would be good if somebody could actually do the research. So the chamber raises, not the chamber, the Camden Area Business Group raises money for the fireworks show. It's between $5,000 and $10,000. That's a challenge for them. They're very open to drone shows. Eric Anderson does a lot of work on this, and he said that this year they did a shorter show to try to be a happy medium between the people that they hear from that say they really don't like the fireworks. There are a lot of people who really don't like the fireworks, and a lot of people that are outraged if there are not fireworks. And so they did a shorter show that wasn't even supposed to happen this year. And then they got, if you saw all the comments on Facebook, like, really, it was kind of nasty. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people are moving mountains so you can have fireworks, and you're complaining about the quality of it. I think there's a lot of openness to trying something new. It's just that so far the newer things are more expensive.
Yeah. So my
also-
initial Google search shows that you need about 100 drones, and that could end up being at the bare minimum $20,000 for a drone show. So I do see a 2 or 4-fold increase in the cost.
Mhm.
But I also think that it's unique enough and would garner a lot of attention that we could probably bring a lot more people to the community seeking out seeing the drone show, because fireworks shows, especially short ones, are kind of a dime a dozen. So perhaps there's an argument with the business community that this could be more beneficial to them and bring more people to town. I don't know.
And most of the businesses don't even stay open for it. And we have a lot of trouble managing all the people. It's not really the business. It's hard to tell. There isn't like the business community. It's like Vicky Dudare, I think they donated $1,000. It was I think somebody just needs, I agree with you. Like, what's the cost difference? Let's try to chip that in and see if people like it. I also think we, almost didn't have them this year and probably broke a law or two making it happen. So it would be, somebody needs to be sort of the champion, do some research and say, hey, this could be cool. It's going to cost $20,000. Let's try it as an experiment. And
I do think the two people who are most interested in it, or at least the one, is not present. So
so we should probably.
So in the interest of, I am absolutely leaving at 2:00 instead of 2:30 because I scheduled myself improperly. I would suggest that maybe we table this until we have the parties who are most willing to.
Yeah, we need some good research that.
Yeah. But I like what you're saying, Samantha, about, trying an alternative and recognizing that an alternative may cost more, but having some, these are the environmental reasons, these are the social reasons, these are the dog reasons, and the pet at large, like all the reasons that when we are looking to try to do something new, and this is, I don't know, there's probably some art community, environmental something grant thing that would provide an opportunity for a quote pilot or to try it, to see if it's more effective and the outcomes, and do a little survey afterwards. Would you do this again, or would you prefer to have the last one? But yeah.
So it'll be everyone will comment on Facebook within minutes.
Right. And is it really the highest priority? And are the drones? What are the what are the unintended consequences of the? How many drones have to fall in the water before it equals the pollution of the?
Yeah.
But somebody
Go on and on.
somebody could look into all that.
No noise to those shows, I would imagine. No booms.
Not really. And
No, that'd be
there was
fine.
just going to be music this year, and the chamber. I mean, they sent out a whole thing. Everybody, there was no revolt, but.
So now I'm going to leapfrog back up to the select board liaison updates to see what we might have missed recently. That's okay.
So we, last night we had a conversation, or an action item with, dealing with the PFAS in wastewater issue. So we have retained, SL Environmental, to represent us as part of, there's a multi-district litigation, effort or happening right now because of the vast contamination of municipal wastewater. They have been going, this same firm has represented many towns as part of the drinking water litigation. So the way the courts have been dealing with PFAS is there's just so many cases coming forward. So they've tried to group a bunch of that together and say, we're going to deal with these types first, these types later. EPA finally came out with a drinking water standard, which allowed them to move forward with litigation for the affected water districts that now have to take on that additional cost of treating for PFAS in order to meet the EPA standards. So it, became easier to assign a cost of this contamination. And, it's DuPont and 3M that are the producers of the chemical. So we don't have the drinking water contamination issue here, thank goodness, but it is widespread in our wastewater treatment process. So the sludge that comes from the treatment plant used to be land spread and composted as part of that program. Now, because of the PFAS contamination and the subsequent state ban on land spreading of this sludge, all of it now needs to go to a secure landfill, which is significantly more expensive, and it's driving up the costs of the wastewater treatment plant. Midco Solid Waste has a significant amount of PFAS in the leachate that comes from the landfill that has to get, it's about 50,000 gallons a day that has to get pumped over to the treatment plant. Those tests have been coming in at about 1,000 parts per trillion, which is high. And Camden, the Camden wastewater treatment plant was identified as one of the higher emitters of PFAS in its effluent as part of some preliminary investigations that the state's doing. So those are coming back at I want to say it's 70, which is still, certainly higher than the drinking water standard. We know that the predominant input for that is Midco Solid Waste because of the landfill leachate. But so there are consequences for both facilities, all of it. Treating for PFAS is very expensive. The potential good outcome of this would be, if we have to get to a point where we're treating our effluent for PFAS, we would also be treating it to a very, very high standard, because if you get rid of PFAS, it's reverse osmosis, carbon filtration, various technologies that also take out a number of other very bad things. So it's just the beginning of that, but kind of interesting. It's this same firm has partnered with 5 others, some of which are the Taft is one that was a big corporate defense firm that this guy Rob Bilott worked at, wrote a book called Exposure, all about sort of his 20-year battle to uncover all of this. There's a movie called Dark Waters that kind of goes over the history of this. It's really interesting. But, just the costs of cleaning all of this up are really, really, really high. So trying to get in early with other towns. So that's sort of interesting. We formed we had a meeting with the Rockport Select Board about the wastewater treatment situation. And I think that was good. That would probably be worth watching for anybody that is interested in that issue. They went over, the Rockport people kind of went over what their challenges are, the basics of their system. And then, one of their main issues is that they have 22 pump stations and very, very high user rates and not very many customers. So their wastewater bills are essentially like as high as tax bills. And then so obviously they're looking for any way they can to bring that cost down and to be able to expand their system, because there's like affordable housing needs and things like that really rely on properties being able to connect to a sewer system. But if they can't, they have to invest a bunch of money into expanding the collection system, and then they need new users. And currently they don't have any kind of a long-term agreement to send stuff to us. About half of it goes to, or a third of it goes to Rockland, and 2/3, I think, comes to us. So then we talked about some of our challenges, everything from the overflowing collection system to the exceedances that we have at the actual plant. Our permit level is an average of 1.2 million gallons a day of treated effluent going into the harbor. And there are, multiple months where we're at like 1.7 million. So the majority of that is I&I, but it's not the volumes are not that high if you just take into account the dirty stuff coming from people's houses. But with the wet weather, we just have so much stuff that gets into our system. So we also learned that the Rossin Avenue pump station is closer to its capacity than we had realized. So everything in Camden that goes to the treatment plant first, nothing flows by gravity directly to the treatment plant. All of it goes to pump stations first. And our two main ones are Bayview Street and Rossin Avenue. Bayview Street overflows on a regular basis, although there's some signs that some of the stuff we've done has improved that. Rossin Avenue is the one where most of Rockport's sewage comes to. And that one has not had any overflows yet. If that one did overflow, it would overflow to the river, which would be different. So I would really like to make sure that we don't get into a situation with that one where it's overflowing like Bayview Street. So they identified we're a little closer there than we realized. Some pumps are not working at the capacity that they could. Rockport's sending us currently about 70,000 gallons a day of wastewater. Their past interlocal agreement, which is now expired, which is sort of the subject of all of this disagreement, allowed for 150,000 gallons a day. So, in their mind, they're not even close to what that previous agreement had outlined. So they, have every reason to believe that, of course, Camden's going to have capacity for the future. But knowing what we know now about how close we already are to problems, it feels would be very irresponsible of the select board to sign, come up with another 30-year agreement with Rockport that, gives them the discounted rate that they want and allows them to send more and more wastewater to us. So the question is now, are there ways that a new agreement could benefit both towns? The benefits to Rockport are, very clear. And they really feel like they would like us to give a lower rate based on the fact that the way it works for them is that all the wastewater from Rockport is metered. So we charge them for every gallon that comes to us to the Rossin Avenue pump station. And so that includes everything that they can bill out to the individual homeowners, plus whatever I&I is unaccounted for, that then has to be distributed among their users. They don't use any taxpayer money to support the system, which is part of the reason it's so expensive. So whereas in Camden, we only charge people for we use the amount of potable water that comes into the house as a gauge of how much wastewater is being sent. If infiltration ends up in the system, whether from an individual property or from the streets, that doesn't get spread across anybody's bill. So Rockport has to pay the fee to us, and then they have to pay the fee to maintain all of these vast number of pump stations, because they're pumping things over a hill in order to not outfall into their own harbor. So anyway, we kind of talked about those things. We talked about some of the potential toxicity concerns in Camden Harbor, and just the nature of the outfall being in the inner harbor, and that sort of trumping all of other factors of fairness, and sort of what amount of revenue from Rockport is beneficial enough to Camden to warrant the impact on our harbor, and what do we know about the impact, what do we not know. Justin went through some of the testing that we're required to do. One thing that I thought was interesting that I didn't know is one of the tests they do is called a wet test, and it's like a sea urchin toxicity test. And so they expose a sea urchin to varying concentrations of our effluent, and then they measure like at what concentration does it impact the fertility actually of the sea urchin. And they do a similar thing with the shrimp. I guess the shrimp did okay, but the sea urchins at 25% concentration, so 25% wastewater and 3/4, I guess maybe the background water in Camden Harbor, I don't know, they start to show the reduced or non-existent fertility. And apparently Justin was like, so that's pretty good. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? That to me was kind of alarming. They exposed them for an hour and a half. So there's also a lot of testing that we're not required to do. So anyway, the outcome of that was that there is a need for a short-term agreement, just to deal with the fact that Rockport is sending us their wastewater now. We need to figure out how much to charge them for that, and then what are the questions going forward. So we're forming a small working group that is going to be the chair of the Rockport Select Board, the chair of the Camden Select Board, and then an additional select board member from each town, so that it's me from Camden, and I'm actually not sure who it is from Rockport, and I think the town managers, and we're gonna kind of come up with some recommendations for a short-term agreement, and then try to define what the longer-term questions are. Can we extend the outfall to go further out into the harbor? What nitrogen is another one. We haven't had a nitrogen standard, but they're putting that in place now in many places in Maine, where there hadn't been nitrogen standards before, because you see these algae blooms and things that are happening in other places. We don't really seem to know what the threat level is for Camden Harbor already. Our permit that we have now mentioned that DEP was going to be doing some testing in the harbor and bay to determine what a total maximum daily load would be for nitrogen. You see other places that just all of a sudden their harbor turns, bright green. Is that a reasonable concern for Camden? Is it not? We don't really have good answers for any of that. How much sediment is being deposited into the harbor as a result of the effluent? What are the concentrations? So that's that. But in terms of things that are of impact to Camden that are conservation related, I think the wastewater stuff definitely is.
And is the harbor committee taking any interest or action? I mean, the outflow is,
No, I think they would become very interested all of a sudden if, people talk about extending the outfall pipe as if it's like an easy thing. I don't think it would be, that would go through the navigational
waters.
channel.
Yeah.
There's rules about disturbing eelgrass beds and every number of things. So, no, the harbor committee isn't tasked with. I think right now we're just kind of trying to get through the stalemate a little bit with Rockport to understand, have they paid us what they're supposed to? In general, I think is there a price point where enough investment from Rockport into making our system better potentially would create a benefit for both towns in sort of the avoidance factor for them and in maybe the, increased revenue and if we effluent improvements here. But we're talking that to improve our treatment process really meaningfully, it's tens of millions of dollars. There isn't a cheap option to do that. And then, Rockport's trying to avoid investing $30 million in their own plant. So it seems like no matter what, somebody's going to be spending a lot of money. Does it make sense for them to spend that over there or over here? The plant that they were going to build was going to be a different technology too, rather than activated sludge, which is what we have. Theirs was sand filtration and something else. So, objectively, the quality of the treatment process, from what I understand, would have been better over there. But there's a lot to all this. I think that the best thing the Conservation Commission could do is sort of maybe be coming up with questions. Because I think Camden residents haven't had a real opportunity in a long time to just sort of ask questions about, like, what do we know about what is going on there? What is the impact of the harbor? We're still not chlorinating in the winter even. That's going to start soon. But, every year when they do that polar plunge, a couple people from the friends that do water quality monitoring always tell me that the town should be discouraging them from doing that because we're not chlorinating and it's like the bacteria is dormant when it's cold, but if it gets inside you, it can reactivate. And as soon as you start talking about this with people, they're like, oh, what? Hold on. I thought it was really, really clean. What is the expectation for Camden residents in terms of how clean our harbor is and how much are they willing to pay for it, and sort of all things that I think we should be thinking about.
Okay.
So that would be, I think, the main
Yeah.
thing. Only other, I have gotten a couple concerns from people over near the Nordhaven development that,
Oh, up here.
yeah. And I know we had looked at a little bit at doing more for stream protection or resource protection overlays in town, or
Yep.
that whole area by Springbrook is like already identified by the state as high ecological value for different reasons, but it doesn't, as it stands now, North Haven would be able to apply to significantly expand that development. And if there were to be it might be smart to do some kind of a zoning change, or to, I know there are a lot of people, or several people, that own properties in the area that have sort of conserved those properties themselves, that feel frustrated. So I don't
By
know.
North Haven, you mean? What they're you wonder what would happen if there was an epic rainstorm, like with what just happened down in Asheville, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like, because the more deforestation that occurs, and, I don't have to tell you, it's just creates more opportunities for, washout and, massive problems and yada, yada, yada. But, and that highway project there at the mouth of or at the end of the stream, that is amazing what
I
they're
know,
doing.
it really isn't. I've been
mean-
going there some, and they're doing a pretty good job. I think
Yeah.
they've managed to control the erosion there way more than I would have thought
Right.
possible. I keep thinking I'm going to be able to go there and be like, oh, this is a disaster. I haven't seen that.
Where's the
yet.
sewer line end going north?
The sewer line ends a little bit before, it doesn't go all the way to Sagamore Farm Road. It goes,
Park on it now?
no, because the park is right past Sagamore Farm Road.
There, the park always had its own sewer system.
Yeah, they've got some kind of septic thing, but no, it ends, I want to say maybe like a mile from before Sagamore Farm Road. That somebody from the state park actually contacted me too about Sagamore Farm, and the thought of, I guess they get a lot of requests to connect their bike trails to the Sagamore Farm trails. And they, there's been, I guess the state park is concerned that we would develop a more extensive entrance there, and they don't want additional entrances to the park that are like unmetered. But there was talk before of sort of permanently conserving Sagamore Farm, and the select board didn't support it at the time. That's another one where the amount of water that comes off of that area, the Sagamore Farm Road, is getting really washed out. And if there were to be any kind of development there, the impact downstream, that's the little that stream comes down and empties into Sherman's Cove at the sort of head of Sherman's Cove there. So, anyway, I think there would be an argument to kind of take development of Sagamore Farm off the table and recommend, I think it was the Conservation Commission in the past that recommended giving that to somebody. They put the sign that says Sagamore Farm Trails was done by the Conservation Commission. Anyway.
Any other updates? Obviously Dave's not here, so we already talked about the street tree planting. I think that's really the biggest piece from him.
So we got scheduled planting any more trees?
We haven't got another date on the schedule at this point in time. I can reach out to him again and see if there's another
Well, let me know.
coming up, or could be date coming up. So yeah, that's totally reasonable. Anything from anyone having attended, watched the YouTube feedback or otherwise in terms of like the Maguntacook River Advisory Committee, again, Harbor Committee, others that I've been a little out of the loop here. I'm not going
Well,
to,
I don't know
all
if
the extended communities.
This is
committees.
kind of on the agenda, but
That was the,
it's the pesticide ordinance.
yep, that's next. So let's
Okay,
just
so
jump,
I'll wait
let's
till-
just jump to that unless there's anything of note or relevance from anyone having attended any other committee meetings that we should be.
I mean, I could tell you all kinds of stuff, but I don't have a succinct,
Okay. So really just as much a reminder that there's a lot of different efforts and actions going on, and there's a lot of overlay that doesn't necessarily happen, and we're not, there's
Yeah, I mean, when they
blame,
do-
there's no blame there, and there's no blame here specifically, just to, as a reminder that, you know, it would continue to behoove us to be aware, and then to see if and when, because I truly believe that when we met with the Harbor Committee, when we shared with the Select Board, when, you know, it was a collective effort in terms of like the peers, and that there was, you know, well, not everybody would agree, I'm sure, but like, I think collectively, they looked at it a little bit differently. We, you know, tried to understand the perspectives. I think the outcome ultimately from a Select Board and a town, you know, vote was to, you know.
oh yeah, it was really
I think
helpful.
it
was-
helped, I think that was a really good example of trying to like cross-pollinate these efforts and make sure that we recognize, you know, how we fit into the whole. So that's,
Oh yeah, I'm actually going to be I was invited to speak at the, this it's called the Coastal Conference put on by Save Our Shores, Saco Bay. And going to be speaking about Camden's peer effort and our regulations. And I spoke last year too, sort of about the mess of things, and they asked me to speak again. And it's kind of nice to be able to go back and say, we made some really
yes.
meaningful improvements. I was on a boat the other day going down the section of shoreline between Sherman's Point and Lincolnville,
Mhm.
and seeing, you know, it's just almost completely natural shoreline, and thinking, oh my gosh, we've protected that from, there aren't going to be private piers there, at least. And it's the high velocity zone, and voters overwhelmingly approved not having new residential piers. And it's pretty, it just creates so many fewer problems too when you have, you know, you build fewer things in the water. So,
Yeah, and you look at the impact of that January storm and what happened.
oh
It's-
yeah,
Boy.
it was so
Testament.
well timed, right in the
Yeah,
middle
it
of the
was a
deliberations
testament
with.
To the whole, you know, situation, right?
It was almost like God came
been-
down and said,
Yeah.
just gonna give you a little taste of this.
What could
Right
happen?
before Camden votes on it, you know, they were about to do this ordinance that was
Oh.
gonna be,
Right.
and we were seeming like radicals a little bit, like, what's wrong with some piers? And then they all fell down.
Yeah.
I was like, huh. Um,
All right, well, I have like 11 and a half minutes. So from a selfish standpoint, and because it's been on the agenda and has been a topic of conversation really off and on since the committee reformed, is the pesticide ordinance update. I don't know if it's an ordinance or an amendment. I don't know what the exact legal
or,
terminology
oh,
is.
to
because-
change to the code or something.
I know,
no?
yes, just want to be on the record as saying that I know that it's not necessarily a whole new ordinance, but there's an
We're
amendment.
changing, yeah,
to
it's an amendment to the code of
existing-
ordinances.
Yes. So this.
Which matters
particular-
for some reason. I mean,
What my take is, this is in sort of in part of a response to a previous incident of, you know, and it is really, this particular update is directed at licensed applicators and increasing, I might argue, not a terrible amount, but yes, more sort of admin, a more background update. It will provide the town a much bigger understanding as to where the applications are being done and for what reasons. You know, is it more about prevention of Lyme disease, or is it more about, you know, carpenter ants? I'm not, you know, it could be, and beyond. It could be a myriad of things, but we don't actually have that data. So I think there's value. My take is, I think that there is value in it from a from a code enforcement and an ordinance and an environmental impact, et cetera. I think I've gotten one pass-through email of one individual landowner, a resident here in town, got a response who uses a licensed applicator for, I think it was Lyme, but I'm not positive. It could have been something else. And this licensed applicator, in very curt terms, made it very clear that her annual application fee would be at least double going forward if this ordinance is put in place. I actually tried contacting said person, entity, group.
I wonder if
to
that's the same email that
to
I,
discuss it, and just to ask what the concerns were, to ask if she could justify a doubling of price for what, as somebody who does this environmental work and does the paperwork and has a small business, I could not figure out how it would take twice as much effort to execute the requests that this particular ordinance has in play. Did not respond. Contacted a couple of times, both by email and by phone. And that's their prerogative, and they can, as a business owner, charge whatever they can get, right? Whatever the customer's willing to pay, I guess. So, but it is,
Was that,
it does raise the point that while this may be well-intended and well-informed, it's certainly not necessarily addressing maybe the response or the concern, like that the Metcalf Road situation is going to happen, with or without this or any other play, because that's a type of person and a type of behavior
Flagrant
that
violation of.
yeah, they just don't care.
Logic and
They just
rules
don't
and-
care.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is really more affecting the people who already are playing by the rules, both the licensed applicators as well as the homeowners who are seeking out the professionals and paying the appropriate professional fees, et cetera. So I just hope that this is the right step forward and that that might be an anomaly.
yeah,
rather
like
than
we
a
can't
norm,
overreact to that.
But we can't.
Most of the
can't
time,
control
people
what they're
don't
charging.
understand that the email that I got, and I was going to try to call him. I'm wondering, is it the
I'm not going to say
organic?
online.
I'm not going to say it either, but it was somebody who was applying organic.
But it doesn't matter if it's organic or inorganic. Pesticide's a pesticide, and they all are under the same rules and regulations.
Okay,
from
that's
the
exactly,
state.
I'm not saying otherwise. I'm saying that it was further, it was somebody who hires a, organic pest control company that uses, from my understanding, either entirely or primarily organic products, and that, person was upset enough to send an email out to their clients, basically. And from what I understood from that, there was confusion about what the ordinance was requiring. And it was saying, oh, this is going to be so expensive. But I didn't see any evidence that the applicator understood what the ordinance,
No, I wouldn't say that person, that they did.
but I was like, oh, I'm just going to try to call him because I know him and I haven't, so we can compare notes. But yeah, it was very much stated that this is known to not be a cure for the Metcalf Road situation. If we're concerned about that particular chemical, that is a very, very similar one, is spread by MVOT on every road that they own in Maine that needs to control woody vegetation. This is the exact chemical that the state of Washington uses for that purpose, and they went through a rigorous process to decide what the right thing to use on the side of roads would be. Camden can opt out of the MDOT's roadside spraying program. Individual property owners can and have done it. But anyway, that, so the actual toxicity of that, or the enduring nature of that one chemical, is probably not as concerning as some anyway. But I think that it is too bad that we're only targeting, the licensed applicators, and there were concerns brought up about that. but it's what is being asked for is a very minor, it's a reporting requirement. And so I think what Rebecca, what you said about the knowledge that we gain from that, in terms of, what are people's concerns? What are people just, oh, I just had my property sprayed because that's what you do, and I just don't want anything to come? Or is it people that are concerned because there is a pest already present? Or, so I think it's important that we try to be, spokespeople for the ordinance, especially since the Conservation Commission did write something promoting it to the select board, saying that you're very much in favor of it. So I don't,
We did.
yeah, Jeremy read something from
Okay.
you at the,
We wrote it a long
Is
time
the point
ago.
of this just so the town knows what and how much is being used, or is there anything beyond that?
that you have to notify neighbors and place signs.
Oh,
We did that 2 months ago. Yeah.
2 months.
doesn't seem like it'd be a lot
No, it
of
was just a review
paperwork. I
something,
mean, you
but-
have like a work order for
Yeah,
an
I don't
address and
remember that either.
just say, this is what we used and
We
how
agreed.
much and
Yeah, whatever.
town.
What does that mean to notify neighbors?
What's that?
What does it mean to notify neighbors? How are they expected to notify neighbors?
Letter. Yep.
So before you have any sort of lawn treatment, a letter has to go to your neighbors? Is that, okay,
It's through the standard process of notifying
Abutters.
abutters when many, changes happen. But yes, and so the state went over this because they have to approve all these ordinances. It was basically directly copied from somewhere else, maybe Harpswell.
They don't have to give an exact date, do they? I mean, yeah, there's nuances that aren't worth drilling down on in 3 minutes, but
Right, there were some requirements about that. What was most important to us was the posting of a sign. It was going to be that they, it has to be legible writing that you can see, and maybe supposed to stay up for a week after or something, or
most of the places already post a sign. I didn't know whether it was required or not, but usually you see those little signs around town. Is this something different than that?
it's really similar to.
yeah, that's why it didn't raise that many
Right.
alarm bells. I'm not sure if that's a formal requirement or not. Some people, I'd have to go back to see. There were a bunch of people that spoke about this, and that had called other places and talked about it, and it was unanimous on the select board for what it's worth, which there's no prohibition of anything, but nothing is perfect, and so that's the trouble. I do suspect that probably the most annoying part of this is going to be people having to notify abutters. But it's, the company that will need to do that. They're going to be a little annoyed by it. I think that'll.
Neighbors could object and that would stop the.
Yeah, but then other people gave stories about how when some of this stuff is airborne, it's being sprayed in the air, and people that are sensitive, and they want to know that their neighbor is having a company come and spray all their trees, and it's windy. And so as soon as I started to feel like, oh, I don't know if it's okay to have to notify all the neighbors, there were these stories of people that felt really impacted by it. Specifically, actually, even Jeremy was talking about how the city of Belfast came along and was spraying stuff, and it was blowing into his property, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I haven't personally witnessed a lot of the application, but the descriptions of the people that felt impacted was compelling enough to me to say, yeah, that's totally reasonable that your neighbor gets told if you're
So they can get told, but can they object and stop it, or are they just told and that's it?
They can't object.
Okay, so that's it. So it's
You
basically,
can have a conversation, but yeah,
it's a one-way,
it's so you can know to,
Yeah.
not be planning your outdoor tea party at that time if you
or
so
have your
choose.
dog out on the lawn.
Right.
Right,
Got it.
Um,
Okay.
So I need to leave. I'm certainly
I do
happy
too, yeah.
to leave the conversation open. I feel like we've been through the majority of the agenda, really, ultimately at this point in time, and without David to do any additional public works or tree planting updates, discussions. So I think from my perspective, we are free to
Adjourn the meeting.
adjourn the meeting at
And
this
then the
point in
next
time.
meeting is the third week,
The next
week-
meeting is
Wednesday,
the first Wednesday
first one, sorry,
from 12:30 to 2:30
of November.
of November.
Yes. So I second the motion.
Sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, and I will reach out to David St. Laurent and make sure that if we can get another tree planting date and time on the calendar, that we'll try to do so. I know he does have like about 15-ish more trees to try to put in the ground before it freezes, so,
Okay.
and then I'll reach out to you accordingly, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I.
Bye.